feel like I should be like an art history teacher at Oxford. Hello friends! Today I'm so excited to share with you some of my favorite dark academia films and films and novels. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what dark academia is, it's an aesthetic that focuses on a love of learning, the arts, self-discovery, literature, the general pursuit and passion for learning and knowledge, and sometimes murder. But at the same time, the definition is different for everyone. There's not one right way to do dark academia. So I'm going to share my personal perspective on what it is and what criteria I use to determine whether something is dark academia or not. For me, there are just two things. One being that it involves a love and passion for knowledge and the pursuit of learning. Usually it will take place in an academic setting, but not always. For example, Sherlock Holmes and Jane Eyre and Northanger Abbey are all, to me, dark academia, but they don't take place in a school setting. I would definitely consider them all dark academia, but they're not set at a boarding school. Also, the learning and knowledge pursuit doesn't have to be literature or Latin or poetry like you often see in the films. It can include math, science, music. Basically, it just needs to romanticize the pursuit of knowledge. And then my second criteria is aesthetic. If you get on Tumblr or anywhere and just type in dark academia, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when I say aesthetic. It's lots of muted and neutral colors. Think autumn colors, brown, beige, warm earthy tones, blacks and grays. Lots of libraries and academic settings such as boarding schools or Ivy League universities, common rooms, cafes, tweed jackets, waistcoats, Oxfords, glasses, pocket watches, candles, books, studying by candlelight, things like that. But like I said, it doesn't have to be set at a school. As long as our main character is in the pursuit of some truth or they're focusing on learning something, then voila, we've got dark academia. And then there's also light academia, which imagine more like Jane Austen type vibes. Dark academia usually has some sort of dark themes, like I mentioned before, possibly murder, but not always. And people would disagree with me, but that's how I see it. So first up, I'm gonna go through some of my favorite dark academia novels. The first one that I have here is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. Even just the cover alone is so dark academia vibes. There are skulls insinuating there's some sort of murder, possibly, keys. There's this big boarding school, and we've got some students. This is a middle grade book, meaning it's for younger children, but Harry Potter is also a middle grade book, so just because it's middle grade doesn't mean you shouldn't read it. Middle grade books are some of my favorites. It follows a student who gets shipped off to England to go to a boarding school because her mom is basically too busy for her. While she's there, she attends Latin Society, which is so dark academia, just that in of itself. And while she's there, she discovers a secret society going on within the Latin club. It involves a lot of mystery, a lot of secret notes, and exploring like these dungeons late at night, and it's so good. Next up, I have The Story Collector by Kirsten O'Donnell Tubb. As you can tell based on the cover, this is another middle grade book that is set in a library. Our main character lives with her family in the library because her dad is the superintendent. It involves sneaking off late at night to find this ghost. I think he's called like Red Beard or Red something. She thinks the library is being haunted by him. It involves her pursuit of trying to learn about this ghost, but also she loves books more than anything. She's constantly making references to them. And it's a really sweet kind of lighthearted DA book. And then next, I've got some classics. I'm not gonna go too much into these because you guys probably know what they're about. First up, I have Jane Eyre. This takes place in the beginning at a very dark and mean boarding school where Jane is sent off to live. But throughout the rest of the book, it has very dark vibes, and Jane is constantly trying to learn about her family, and then she becomes a teacher at one point. It has a lot of search for knowledge and very dark vibes, and also involves some death. So there you go. And then two of my favorites, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and Dracula by Bram Stoker. I can't mention dark academia and not mention these two. Victor Frankenstein is working on creating a creature, a monster, and Dracula is all about the hunt for vampires and what they are and how people are endangered by them. I have no words for these two. They're some of my favorite books of all time. And then another one would be Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. In this one, our main character goes off to this abbey. It's very big and it looks kind of haunted, and she's obsessed with reading Gothic literature. She's constantly thinking about vampires and monsters. She references a lot of literature. She is given book recommendations by a friend. This also focuses a lot on our main character, Catherine, her self-discovery, and a lot of growth that goes on with her. So this one is definitely dark academia as well. Moving on from the classics, I have two adult books. These ones are kind of cult classics when it comes to dark academia. This is like required reading if you really want to get interested in dark academia. And those two are The Secret History by Donna Tartt and If We Were Villains by L.M. Rio. And to be honest, I have not read either of these. I'm about a third of the way through If We Were Villains, but I've never picked up The Secret History. The Secret History takes place, I think, at a university. There's a group of, I think they're like toxic friends basically. There's a murder and we're figuring out who the murder is. I believe it's pretty dark and just has all of the tropes of a dark academia novel. And then If We Were Villains kind of follows the same type of storyline, except for our main character is at a school, like a liberal arts school. I think it's just for arts like music and acting and stuff like that. I think specifically it focuses on a group of friends that are part of the Shakespeare Club, or they just really like Shakespeare, something to do with Shakespeare. And once again, there is a murder in this friend group and we're trying to figure out who did it. I've heard some people say that they like this one slightly more than The Secret History, but I also know that The Secret History has a massive cult following of people that just love it so much. If you really want to deep dive into DA, I would definitely recommend these two. And then moving on to films, one of my favorite dark academia films that I feel like is underrated and not that many people talk about it is Tolkien. And I learned from that film the correct way to say J.R.R. Tolkien's name isn't Tolkien, it's Tolkien. I didn't know that before the film. I don't know if I'm the only one who didn't know that. So it's a biographical film about the early life of J.R.R. Tolkien, the writer of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, as well as other notable academic works. We've got a boarding school setting, and then I think he goes to Oxford when he gets older. I can't remember if it's Oxford or another university. We've got a brotherhood friendship group of outcasts. The fashion is peak dark academia. All of the muted and neutral colors are just so on point in this film. It's also set during World War I. It's partially set during World War I. And of course, we focus on Tolkien's pursuit of knowledge and passion for writing. Everything about it is just perfect dark academia. There's also a lot of Tolkien's self-discovery. There are some dark themes. It's a bit sad in some parts of the film, but overall, it's really good. And out of all of the movies on this list, I would highly recommend this one if you haven't seen it yet. On to the next one, we've got School Ties. And okay, here's a good enough reason just to watch the film on its own. We've got Brendan Fraser, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and there's another one, I can't remember his name. Oh my gosh. I'll put his picture. All of them are the main characters. I love Brendan Fraser. 90s Brendan Fraser is, I love him. I love him in The Mummy and Blast from the Past. Like, oh, so good. So for our setting, we've got a very prestigious boarding school. As an audience, we're told that a couple of the presidents attended school there. The education is very rigorous. Our main character, Brendan Fraser, is a Jew. And that's a bit of a conflict because this very prestigious school is a Christian school. And at this time period, Jews were very much bullied and looked down upon. In terms of aesthetic, we've got all of the classrooms working hard on assignments. They go to some dances. The fashion is very vintage. It has some dark themes because when the students figure out that Brendan Fraser is a Jew, they do not take it very well. We've also got the acceptance of Brendan Fraser being okay with the fact that he is a Jew and accepting who he is. I only recently watched this one this year and I loved it. Next on the list, we've got An Education. This one stars Carey Mulligan. She does an amazing job. It takes place in the past, but I don't remember specifically when it was. I watched it a while ago. Fashion is very much DA, and there are times when they're at bars or they're out for a night on the town. There are scenes where they're driving these cars or they're admiring artwork. The aesthetic is all there. There are scenes with Jenny, who Carey Mulligan plays. She's at a very nice, fancy girls' school preparing to go to Oxford, who grows up very sheltered. She's an only child. Her parents want her almost more than she does to go to Oxford. She spends all of her time doing homework and assignments and hardly ever gets to go out and experience real life. Until one day an older suitor walks into her life, or should I say drives into her life in a pretty fancy car, and she kind of gets a taste for what she's been missing out on. He introduces her to adult life in society, and she's torn between that life and her studious life getting into Oxford. I will say in the beginning of the film, it seems like a kind of light-hearted romance, but by the end, there are a lot of heavier and darker themes presented. It's basically about Jenny kind of making a mess of getting to where she wants to go with her life. I don't really know how to say that without spoiling anything, so we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it checks all the boxes for dark academia, and I absolutely loved the ending. So highly recommend this one as well. I love all of the ones on this list though. Next, we have Mary Shelley. Mary is played by Elle Fanning, who does an amazing job. This is another biographical film about Mary Shelley's early life, before she wrote Frankenstein, during writing Frankenstein, and a bit after she wrote it as well. In terms of aesthetic, it's absolutely perfect. It has so many scenes set in bookshops of Mary at her desk writing. It is very dark. Even a lot of the scenes, it's raining outside or it's foggy or overcast. There are a lot of scenes where Mary is experiencing loss and grief and remembering her mother, who she misses so much. She went through a lot. And then of course we get to see Mary's pursuit and love of writing. She's constantly writing these stories. She presents a story to her dad and he says something like, this is like a copycat of all of the authors that you've read. You need to discover your own voice. She spends a lot of time writing, and then when she is at this manor with her friends, it has been raining for weeks, and they decide that in order to pass time, they're each going to write stories and then present them, and the best story wins. And that's when she kind of starts writing Frankenstein. So a lot of the film, we see her in the process of writing and of discovering her own voice. I love it so much. And then next we've got another one of my all-time favorites, mostly because it's a Hitchcock film. I love all the Hitchcock films. And this one is called Rope. You might not have heard of this one as much as you might have heard of the other ones, so I'll give a brief synopsis. Basically, just before a dinner party, these two best friends from university strangle another one of the students. And they do it with a piece of rope, hence the title. And the thing is, they don't even do it because they hated him or they had some reason to kill him. It was purely as a philosophical exercise, which is like crazy. So then they go even further and they hide the body in a chest that they are going to use for a dinner party later that evening. So they're literally going to put a buffet of food on top of this chest that has a dead body in it. They welcome their dinner party guests, including the victim's fiance and their professor from university. And this professor, played by my all-time favorite, Jimmy Stewart, is the one whose lectures inadvertently inspired this killing. So in terms of aesthetic, we've got vintage vibes. There's lots of references to their classes at the university and philosophy. They're all wearing their coats and ties. Definitely got dark themes of murder as a philosophical practice. And then when Jimmy Stewart enters the room, we've got him kind of questioning them, and he kind of starts to sense that something is off. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time, and it's just phenomenal. And it also is underrated, so definitely go check that one out. It's so good. I have an entire list that's all dark academia films and books that I haven't even mentioned, so I'll leave it in the description box down below. I didn't want this video to be too long or too overwhelming with so many, so if you want some more recommendations, definitely check down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching. I would love to hear your favorite dark academia film or novel, so definitely leave a comment so I can go check them out. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!